Thank you, everybody, for taking the time for our little virtual visit here this afternoon. And it's nice to see so many of you. And I especially appreciate the time you're taking out of your busy day. But there's an awful lot of stuff that's been going on, and I'd like to share some of what's been going on with you in advance of our first topic of conversation, which is the mid-year meeting. We will be live and in person at the JW Marriott down on Adams in Chicago. And there will be, in the agenda has been published and it's up on the website. But as you know, we're going to have a variety of joint events with the IJA, and there'll be some CLE programs. All of those events will be taking place at the JW Marriott. Your council and committee meetings are going to be held at the CRO. And I think by now all of you have received your meeting announcements and so forth and so on. If there are any event schedule changes that are needed, you can check our website to be updated as far as any meeting time or location changes. We will be running a shuttle bus service between the JW and the regional office, 20 South Clark. And we will start the festivities Thursday evening. There'll be an opening reception, a networking reception at the JW that will occur between 4 and 5:30. We are going to continue with the timing and format of the assembly. We've moved that meeting once again from Saturday morning to Friday afternoon. And the meeting will commence, I think it's 30 minutes after the conclusion of all of the day's business meetings. That seemed to work out very well in Lake Geneva at the annual, and we're going to continue keeping the assembly on Friday afternoon, at least until President-elect Kasserman decides what he wants to do. Friday evening, we will have an event honoring newly installed Supreme Court Chief Justice Mary Jane Tice, and I encourage all of you to attend. Right. Sir? All right, I thought somebody jumped in there. My bad. The format of Friday evening's event is going to be very similar to the annual meeting in that we're not going to have a sit-down dinner. There's going to be food stations. There'll be a cocktail hour starting about 6 o'clock. A very brief program will commence probably around 6:45 with myself and Tim Tomasic from Chicago Bar Association introducing our dignitaries. Tim will introduce Justice Tyson. I'm sure she'll have some comments for all of us. Once she is finished, we'll have some music, some food, some drinks, and once again, that format seemed to work very well at the annual meeting. It was well received, and we're going to do that. The changes that we've implemented to the scheduling and the programming at the annual meeting, as I mentioned, were very well received. But the benefit that we have realized is that we have some cost savings. And just in general, it's a more efficient use of our time, facilities, and our staff hours. So this, again, is not experimental, but we're kind of feeling our way through this. And I would say that we not only welcome, but need your feedback on this, which will be our first live mid-year since 2019. Lastly, I want to remind all of you that if you want to get the ISBA room rate at the JW Marriott, you have to book by today. So if you haven't booked, today's the day to do it. Otherwise, you'll be paying the full rate, whatever that might be. I also want to give you we mentioned the Chicago regional office, and I'd like to give you an update on where we are with that facility. As many of you know, I think we've been working on looking into alternatives to that space for probably the last 18 months or so. We have decided, basically because of a variety of concessions that were made by the landlord, who originally didn't want to make any concessions. We've decided that we are going to stay in the space at 20 South Clark. However, we will be letting go, if you will, of the 9th floor, and we will be basically occupying the 8th floor with the ISBA Mutual and with the Bar Foundation. So one of the things that obviously we all learned from the pandemic is that people can and do effectively work remotely, and that has enabled the Mutual, ISBA, and the foundation to cut back dramatically on the amount of space that we need. We're going to be receiving some rent concessions from the landlord. They're also going to be providing us with a fairly significant amount of money to do a revised build out. And many of you may remember the infamous staircase between the 9th and the 8th floor. At one point in time, that was a penalty of some $250,000. And as part of this renewed rental agreement, which will take us out for another 15 years, the landlord has kindly agreed to waive that penalty as well and seal up the floor at his own expense. So basically, our current lease runs through 2025. Part of the package here is that they're going to be tearing up the existing lease next May, I believe it is. Bob, correct me if I'm wrong here. It's either May or June. And then we will have a new lease that's going to carry us forward starting in 2025. So good news on that front. I think as many of you are finding in your private practices, if you're renting a lot of space, you're probably renting more space than you need. And we think that having everybody on one floor is not only a good economic plan for us, but also will enable all three organizations to run a little bit more efficiently from a staffing standpoint as well. We have, as you know, a number of initiatives ongoing. To just kind of touch briefly on some of them, we will be going back to a live and in-person leadership academy. We're currently in the preparation stage for that, looking to get that moving forward in the spring of 23. As you know, our DEI assessment has been completed, and we are now in discussions with the steering committee on equity to move on to the implementation stage. That committee consists of Governor Bianca Brown and Cara Coleman, who's the editor of the Bar Journal from the Diversity Leadership Council, past president Anna Krolikowska, President-elect Sean Kasserman, and me. And we are continuing to work with Professor Norwood and Dr. Richard Harvey from WashU in St. Louis to come up with an implementation strategy and plan. The goal, of course, being to develop policies and practices that are going to carry the association forward into the future. We've also begun work on what I would tentatively call the Underserved Communities Practice Initiative. There's a team led by Governor Mike Bergman, Bianca Brown, and Juan Thomas, who have met and are working together to put together recommendations for members to join the committee. Once formed, the committee is initially going to work with the Rural Practice Initiative Committee so that some of the organizational experiences and things that RPI went through, we can maybe avoid with this new initiative. The plan is to have the full committee in place in January. And the idea here, much like rural practice, we're targeting those urban areas of the state in much the same fashion as RPI addressed legal deserts in the more rural areas of the state. So that concept, that committee, if you will, is all part of a broader initiative to address the glut of self-represented litigants in our courts and the overriding, I guess, umbrella of access to justice. which we're trying to deal with. Over the past summer, ISBA was the initial sponsor of ABA Resolution 402, which was passed after some political back and forth, overwhelmingly by the ABA's House of Delegates. The purpose of that resolution was to reaffirm ABA policy regarding Rule of Professional Conduct, Rule number 5.4, which bars non-lawyer ownership of law firms and splitting of fees with non-lawyers. But to kind of tie that together with the access to justice initiatives that I've discussed, and we'll give you a few more, it was important for us to realize that even though we successfully resisted the efforts of some folks in the ABA to diminish Rule 5.4, eliminate it altogether, we came to the conclusion that we can't just sit back and be against something. We need to be something, in this case, non-lawyer ownership of law firms and fee splitting with non-lawyers. It's important that we come up with our own ideas and be actively involved in solutions to these access to justice issues, so that the provision of legal services will continue to be provided and supervised by lawyers. And consistent with that effort, at ISBA, the leadership has taken on a variety of different projects. We are in conversation with our legal assistance provider partners throughout the state, CVLS, Pilley, Prairie State, Land of Lincoln, et cetera, because one of the things that we are going to do is we're going to ask the Supreme Court to reconsider the use of 711 students in the civil setting. And part and parcel of that is going to be some measure of reliance on the legal assistance providers to be involved in that process. As many of you may know, the Supreme Court has twice now shot down the use of 711 students in civil settings. And I think it's important for all of us to get behind the idea that if properly supervised, and that's where the legal aid people come in, these folks can be of great assistance when it comes to self-represented litigants, when it comes to the addressing of enabling people to avail themselves of a lawyer's advice under the auspices of the lawyers who will be supervising these 711 students. And as many of you know, we have a court that has the composition of which has changed dramatically and will continue to change in the next couple of weeks when the new justices are sworn in. And I'm very hopeful that when we go to the court and explain that it's always better for people with legal problems to be able to have those problems reviewed and addressed and get advice from lawyers or lawyers supervising law students in this case, that's always a preferable way to handle the access to justice crisis, so that, quite honestly, we don't all end up working for Amazon law or Walmart law, as some of our friends in other disciplines, the medical community being one, are finding themselves going more and more to. Another element of what we're trying to do here is, many people don't go to a lawyer because they don't think they can afford one. We are currently at the Professional Conduct Committee. We're going to be looking into the use of the billable hour as our primary billing metric. I'm going to be asking them to get a little creative. Our friends in Texas, and I think in Florida as well, allow, for instance, for the use of contingent fees in divorce cases. So I think we are going to be reviewing, and we may set up a special committee to do this, but I think we're going to start at professional conduct first. We're going to take a look at the idea of fees and go back in history to when we had fee schedules. in other words, getting a little creative so that we can match lawyers who are willing to take cases on perhaps what we might consider a more creative fee basis with the clients that need those lawyers. And lastly, on the access to justice issue here, I am working on convening a symposium, if you will, a gathering that would involve ISBA, CBA, the court, legal assistance providers, and other people involved to try to come up with some real world solutions to access to justice that don't involve selling our souls to the highest bidder. Again, my mantra here is that people benefit when they receive legal advice from either a lawyer or someone being supervised by a lawyer. And to get back briefly to 402 for a minute, our little ad hoc group that steered that proposal through the ABA House of Delegates continues to meet. Past President John Thies and Governor Emily Masalski were instrumental in putting all that together and remained very, very actively involved in those efforts. But we also had help from our friends in New York, New Jersey, a couple of ABA committees, the California Bar Association, many bar associations across the state continue to be involved in those efforts. Let's see. October 1st, as most of you know, marked the beginning of ISBA campaign season. Many of you may be seeking office, and I encourage everyone to do so. It's always a rewarding experience. It has been for me. And at your upcoming meetings at the mid-year, you're going to have the parade of candidates for third VP, the board, the assembly, who will want to address your business meeting. And it is our common practice historically to allow the candidates to speak to these at your meetings. And we encourage the candidates who wish to do so to reach out to you chairs in advance to ask for time to speak at the meeting. And I would encourage all of you to allow those candidates the time to do so. However, doing so is the prerogative of the chair, and you have to take into account the activities and other things that your council or committee has going on. My thought here, and I believe it was Women in the Law, when I was running for third VP, they kindly allowed me to speak and said, you got 2 minutes. Feel free to impose some time restrictions, particularly in those sections and councils and committees where, you're doing a lot of business at every meeting that you have. The candidate nominating petitions, again, are all electronic. They're all online through the ISBA website. I would encourage all of you to encourage all of your members to sign petitions for candidates for whom they can vote and to participate in that election process when the ballots come out in January, I think. No, I'm sorry, February. Zoom, and we're living proof. We're looking at each other in the computer right now. Probably not the most ideal way of doing business, but it certainly is an effective one. And we are going to continue to use Zoom as much as we possibly can. The Zoom meetings have generally received very broad support across the line. It enables us, it enables your members to participate without the need to drive here or there or incur expenses or lose time. So at least for most of our committee and section council meetings, we're going to continue to Zoom. The exceptions, of course, were the annual meeting in June and of course the upcoming mid-year meeting. There's a little known caveat to the Faber College Charter, and if there is a desire on the part of your members or you as chair to try to do an in-person meeting, there's a vehicle for us for you to make that request to through Ernest to Mr. Craighead, and I think all of you know Ernest Behrens, who joined us back in April. He's done a great job and is a great resource. And I urge you, if you do wish to consider that, to talk to Ernest and always share your thoughts with Ernest about how the Zoom process is working for you and for your people. The self-nomination appointment forms for next year's councils and committees opened back on November 1st. You probably saw the ad with President-elect Casserman's smiling face in the November Bar Journal. And we want, of course, everyone who is interested in serving to self-nominate for next year. And that includes the current members. So please, at your next meeting, remind your members that they have to self-nominate even though they are currently on the committee roster. In February, all of you and your vice chairs will be asked to fill out an evaluation form. This form assists the president-elect when selecting members of the councils and committees. There are several pieces of information that President-elect Casserman will receive, including your evaluation form. So please be as thorough and candid as possible. Provide as much information as possible to help Sean during the appointment selection process. That includes both positive and negative feedback. And having gone through this process, I can assure you that your recommendations and input are not only invaluable, but have a great deal of influence on appointment decisions or not appointment decisions. So your assistance in that process is not only greatly appreciated, but goes a long way to enabling the president-elect to determine who's going to be serving alongside of you. As you know, we've had a couple of member appreciation events in the past that were very well attended, very well done, and we will be doing another set of member appreciation events in the late spring. So you'll be getting more information on that as we get deeper into April and May of 2023. On behalf of the Illinois Bar Foundation, I want, our goal is to try to get 100% participation from all of our section councils and committees. And while we haven't achieved that, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't stop. I encourage you to support and become a donor to the foundation. I ask you to encourage your members to do so. Coming out of the pandemic, the need for funding is even greater than it has been in the past. And the foundation is a critical partner in our existing and upcoming access to justice initiatives. The foundation, as you may or may not know, is a source of grants to many, many providers of legal assistance to the poor and indigent, and also serves a valuable function of being able to assist our colleagues who may have found themselves in a situation where they need some economic assistance. So I would ask you all, as a matter of form, to add a regular pitch for IBF participation as a regular agenda item on your agendas. Almost done. I want to let you know that newsletter articles and submissions are an important and critical responsibility of yours as chair. I know you all have newsletter editors, but keep on your rank and file. We expect every committee or council to publish at least a quarterly newsletter. As you may know, we get some advertising revenue for the association from advertising in those newsletters. And I know, some sections or committees may not have the volume to be able to get that quarterly newsletter out. But if you can get more out, we can sell more advertising. And that is an important function of each and every section council and committee we have, regardless of size. So while I understand your editors bear the bulk of the burden for getting those newsletters published, it is your responsibility as chair to make sure that it happens at least quarterly. and to encourage everyone. It's a great resume builder. You know, we all have resumes, so there's nothing like being a published author to add to your curriculum vitae. And once again, if you need anything, if you need any assistance, our staff is amazing. Contact your staff liaison, and they'll connect you with the folks in our publication staff to provide you with whatever assistance you might need. So that's the, I guess you could say, my address to the nation. And at this point, I would love to hear your questions, comments, and input. So, and Mr. Covington, thank you very much for reminding me that Lincoln did the Gettysburg Address in 2.5 minutes. Anyhow, I never thought of myself as much as being comparable to Lincoln. But anyhow, so questions, we can use the chat function. I'll try. We've got a couple of pages of faces and so forth. So if you want to throw your hand up, either to ask a question or in frustration for this taking as long as it did, I'm happy to hear you. I don't see anything. Bob, do you have any comments you want to make?
I just want to reiterate our sincere thank you to the leaders of our committees and sections for all the time and effort that you give to ISBA. We are interested in your input with regard to the revised mid-year meeting format to see how that works. The echo you hear is the fact that my office is right next to Kim Weaver, so you can hear me twice. My apologies for that. And with that, I want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving holiday. Be safe and have a great holiday.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the holiday. Be safe, and we look forward to seeing you at the mid-year. Take care.